We've got Ducks, we've got Beavers, we've got Blazers, and we've got a crazy man in the NBA. Welcome to the Oregonian Sports Podcast. I am Aaron Fincher of the Oregonian, and joined as always by Coin6's Brenner Green. Before we get rolling, remember to subscribe to our subtext feature by texting JOIN to 503-386-0095. You will receive a link. Click the link, start your 14-day trial, receiving text directly to your phone from myself and Bill Orm and James Crepia and Nick Daschel, etc. You don't want to miss out on that, because who wouldn't want me bombarding them with texts in their phone, right, Brenna? I mean, you enjoy my texts, don't you? Don't you get all excited? Oh,
that seems like a dream to me.
I sensed the sarcasm dripping, just flowing from that, but that's okay. I will take it. Anyway, how you been? How are things going?
I'm good. We're getting through the holidays. We've been burning some vacation time this week, so that's been nice. And getting going. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Have you done your Christmas shopping?
For one person, I have. Do you have any recommendations on what to get my dad for Christmas? This man is impossible to shop for.
What's he like? So is he like me, like the middle-aged guy who has everything? And if he wants it, he just buys it himself, so you don't know what to get him? Is it like that?
No, he doesn't want anything, Like, he's just, I don't know, he's a big golfer. He does a lot of golf.
There you go. Golf.
I don't know.
Get him. What golf ball does he use? Get him a couple boxes.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Does he have a favorite? Does he have a favorite team? Get him golf towels in that team.
Yeah.
Golf. Okay. There's so many things you can do with golf, because golfers are always trying to buy new stuff. What glove does he wear? Maybe you can get him the glove or whatever. And so since he doesn't really want anything, and then he's not going to expect much, and then he opens it up and a fresh box of balls and a golf glove and a towel with my favorite team. Oh my God, Brennan, you're the greatest daughter ever. See? You can't lose.
We've solved it.
All right, let's dive right in. We got a lot of things to talk about here. Let's start first. It was a while back now, of course, but Heisman ceremony came and went. Jaden Daniels, the favorite, won. Bo Nix, third. I had him second. Daniels first. Penix, third on my ballot. What'd you think? I mean, or did you think? Or did you care? Or did you pay attention?
My biggest takeaway from the Heisman ceremony is I know why they do it, because I'm in television.
You tweeted about this. Go ahead.
Everything is so canned and like the worst part of that entire ceremony was when they brought former winners down to interview the current guys all on stage. Mm-hmm. And like they were all sitting there and they just like went one to the next, and it was so just like, okay guys, this was a bad idea. Do not do this next year. Like it was just so like canned and cringy, and stuffy. I'm fine with like the interviews on stage or whatever of each guy. Like it's okay. That's fine. But like the weirdness of having like 10 guys all standing on stage, all waiting their turn to interview their guy. It was just weird. It was really weird. It had zero flow, and that was like the most like, okay, can we please release me from this secondhand embarrassment that I'm getting? Like I'm not even involved, and I'm just like, go to commercial. So yeah, anyways, I understand why they do it. I understand why you do the entire hour ceremony. You want the viewers, you want the hype, whatever. Which, by the way, it went over an hour, which was funny because we were like, okay, like myself and my sports producer were like, okay, they should probably announce the winner around like the 45 mark, because they're going to need to go to commercial break. There's going to be a speech, like all that sort of stuff. No, the winner didn't even get announced until the top of the hour. And he was like, there's no way that they're going to go over. Like, they're not going to go over. I go, they're going over. Like that is happening right now. And then he finally was like, okay, yeah, I guess they're going to go over. I was like, yeah. So yeah, it took a while. You want to know one way to get it within the hour? Cut the canned interviews on stage.
Those were a bit much.
Yeah. So anyways,
it's always felt kind of stuffy.
Anything. with the final results or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, people are still complaining about it. And then you have the dual complaints with the FSU thing, them not getting in, and then how much, the record of a player should matter, or the individual versus team award. To me, the stats are just undeniable. You can make arguments any way you want to make them, that's fine, but I think Daniels was the guy. So, all right, we don't have to dwell on that. Let's move along. What's up next here? JPJ, Jackson Powers Johnson. First of all, if you're going to have 3 last names, greatest 3 last name combo ever, Jackson Powers Johnson. Just Amazing. Sounds football-esque, doesn't it? Just sounds like he's bulldozing somebody, and he clearly bulldozed a lot of people because he became only the 5th player in Oregon history to be a unanimous All-American, joining Marcus Mariota, Michael James, Kayvon Thibodeau, Penei Sewell. Pretty impressive. That's a heck of a group.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. And I think his story is so unique because he wasn't playing at the center position last year. That was Alex Forsyth, for the majority of the snaps. It was Alex. And so the fact that he came in 1 year and did all of this is crazy. And I think it's such a reflection on Alex's legacy, because he always talks about how, Alex is really the one that he tries to model everything after, and Alex taught him so much about leadership and all this other stuff. And so I just think it's an incredible, reflection on Alex as well, that JPJ was able to go out and do this. No
way.
It's so funny because, everyone's like, he's one of those classic guys that's like the nicest guy off the field. And then it's just, a little spicy on the field, God, he's the best. He's so cool. His family is so nice. I don't know if you know this, but, he, the Johnson in his last name is actually from his stepdad. So he took his stepdad's last name and hyphenated it with his mom's, or with I guess the one he already had. So he technically was Jackson Powers. So Jackson Powers Johnson has infinite powers. Okay, that's like his superhero name. I feel like it was meant to be. So it's super cool. I also just want to say I have a very fun story idea with him that I don't think is going to happen, but I'm not going to say it here right now. And if it does happen next week, I'll talk about it. I don't have high hopes for it happening, but I do have a very fun story idea with him. So we'll see if it ends up getting pulled off or not. So.
Wow. Just going to leave that out there like that, huh? I see how it is. Yeah. I mean,
I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's clearly an impressive season for him, and an accomplishment. And yeah, I mean, I didn't realize only 4 prior unanimous All-Americans, and he is the 5th. And 3 of the 5 recruited by Mario. I guess maybe he did do a good job, huh? Anyway,
I know, right?
That's another story. So one area where Mario did fail, though, was recruiting a quarterback out of high school who could become the program's franchise starter, so to speak. As a matter of fact, the last quarterback out of high school to be the unchallenged starter was Justin Herbert, recruited in 2016, who obviously became the starter halfway through that season and then started the next 3 years. Since then, only one other quarterback has started, I think, who was recruited out of high school. That was Tyler Shuck, who in 2020 led the conference in passing efficiency, but was passed over for Anthony Brown, who was a 6-year senior, I think, going into that 2021 season with Mario's final season. And then, of course, Lanning goes out and gets Bo Nix instead of rolling with Ty Thompson. And then, obviously, Nix is the starter again, and Ty Thompson stayed. I kind of thought Ty Thompson should have left after 2022, but he didn't. He stuck around, and now, boom, he's passed over again, this time for Dillon Gabriel out of Oklahoma. So, two-part question here for you, Brenna. One, your thoughts on them going out and getting Dillon, and then your thoughts on, the situation with Ty. 5-star kid comes to Oregon, spends 3 years, working his butt off, and apparently didn't impress long enough to win the job. So now he's got to move on.
Well, coaches, like all of us in the world, but especially coaches, love the bright, shiny, new thing.
This is true.
That's just the reality. And when you have the opportunity to go into the transfer portal and get someone who is widely regarded as the best quarterback in the transfer portal, I mean, what are you going to do? Like, of course you're going to go get that guy. He's already proven on the field, and the expectations for him next year are pretty large, and they should be. Those expectations were not going to be that way for Ty Thompson. It would have been like a womp womp, just because. And that's no shade to him. It's just that he's never had like and this might not be through any fault of his own, but he's never had like a moment where it's been like, whoa, okay,
right.
like that's never happened. Even in the spring game, he was there, he was doing it, but like the biggest play that he was involved in the spring game was Tez Johnson running 70 yards, and that was just a pretty routine pass for Ty.
Right.
So, that it wasn't anything that really Ty did. That was the moment of, oh, Tez might actually be really good. And yeah, I think that worked out for him. But anyway, so yeah, it's just Oregon had to go out and get this guy. They had to. So I can't blame Oregon for going and getting this guy. You have to do that to put your program in the best position, but it's going to be really tough. It's just really tough in this world generally to be a freshman or a sophomore or especially like a junior and come in and get your starter reps. It's really difficult because there's all these, every December, every end of November, every early December, guess what? You've got all these guys that already have stats going into the transfer portal and going to transfer in over the top of you. I agree. Ty should have left last year. I'm sure that there were other things. It's hard for kids to leave. As much as it seems like it's easy, it's also hard. Like, you never know what's going on in his life personally that is like, okay, maybe I should stay at Oregon for another year. But yeah, I mean, hindsight is absolutely 2020 here. And it's like, yeah, it was time for you to go last year. But yeah, I mean, I wish Ty Thompson the best, and I mean that like really sincerely. I think that he's a nice kid that, it just didn't, and it wasn't like there was anything bad about him on the field either. There wasn't like oh, that was really bad. There just never was oh, that was really good with him. And so that's, yeah, but if you don't have the, oh, that's really good, you're going to go out and go get another guy. Like that's just what it is.
Clearly, Ty didn't do enough to make either Mario, and Mario was only with him for 1 year, or Lanning believe he was going to be a major impact starter. It's that simple. And with Marcus, we were hearing grumblings about Marcus while he was redshirting. Practices were closed. That was the first year Chip closed practices before the 2011 season. And so you would just hear these stories of this kid, Marcus Mariota. Oh my God, this guy's amazing. And at that time, Darren Thomas was a starter. He was going to have another year left. And then Brian Bennett had already shown that he could ball. So Bennett was the heir apparent, right? But you kept hearing about this Marcus kid. Well, Marcus impressed right away. He and Bennett competed in the spring and in the fall. But even then, it was like, yeah, Marcus is the leader in the clubhouse, even though they're competing. And then, of course, Marcus, amazing, right? Herbert, his first fall camp, there were these, again, everything's closed, but there were these stories coming out of camp. I'll never forget Andy McNamara, who was a PR person for them, SID for them, said to me one day, he just said his eyes are really big. And I go, what? He goes, dude, Justin Herbert, he's Herbiota. I was like, really? What do you mean? He goes, he just gets it. He just aside from having physical talent, like he was just picking things up at like a high rate and just but Lakota came in with more experience, so they rolled with him first. And then once things started going sideways, they're like, let's go with the more talented kid because he's picking it up. And of course, he had his ups and downs, but he also threw 6 touchdowns against Cal. So anyway, if you're going to be that guy young, it's going to show, and the coaches are going to see it, and they're not even going to think about a transfer. Clearly, Ty did not show that. So if you're Dan Lanning, coming off of Knicks, and it's like, okay, we've seen Ty for 2 years.
Yep.
Ty's ceiling is X. We don't believe it's high enough maybe for us to get where we want to go. So can we get someone better? Oh, look, here's this kid who threw for 30 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 172 rating, 3,600 yards. And oh, by the way, he rushed for 373 yards and 12 touchdowns. So dude put up Heisman numbers, right? And he's wildly experienced. There was a lot of talk about Bo Nix setting the record for starts. Well, this dude's going to break the record because he's already played 5 years of college football, but injured in 2021 and 2020 goes out the window when he was at Central Florida. So he has another year. So yeah, that's like a no-brainer. And then for him, they're probably going to pay him at least 7 figures, right? Which is still mind-boggling to me in the college football world. So yeah, you're gonna make that move. You're not gonna trust that Ty's gonna develop in the next 9 months when you can get someone who's automatic. And then that when he's gone for 1 year, you can go back out and get someone else. So it's tough. That's why I believe Ty last year should have bailed and just found some place where he could play, right? Because even if you go down a level or you go to a group of 5, if you go somewhere else and you start and you put up good numbers, guess what? Someone's gonna come calling like Oregon to try and pluck you. Instead, someone got mad at me on Twitter for saying he wasted. Well, he wasted his eligibility. That doesn't mean he wasted his time. I mean, he learned a lot, obviously, but you only get 4 years to play. 2 are gone being a backup with a program that didn't believe in you. I hope he lands somewhere where he can play. He's clearly talented, and you never know when someone's going to blossom, just like who? Bo Nix. Let's not forget.
Yep.
So in 2020, I was hearing from people Ty wasn't ready, and I tried to report that, and people bashed me for it. And then I was like, there's no way they're not going to get a transfer. You're an idiot. He's a 5-star. They're not going to transfer. Lanning got a transfer right away. There's no way Bo's not going to start. You're an idiot. Ty's a 5-star. So Ty couldn't overcome those hurdles. And so now he needs to go somewhere else and show that he can play. And he might blossom just like Bo did. Because no Oregon, I'd say this, 95% of Oregon fans were not excited about Bo Nix. They were like, oh my God, what are we doing? He's not going to be any good, or he's going to be average. I had questions myself, and clearly now he's one of the most beloved players in Oregon history. So Ty Thompson, he too can go somewhere else and blossom. I just wish he would have done it a year earlier, but that's just me.
By the way, and I have no idea the validity of this, but I saw somebody say that thank God Bo Nix is playing in the bowl game because, obviously Bo's playing, but if Bo didn't play, Ty transfers out. And somebody was saying that Austin Novosad has banged up. I don't know. I have no idea.
How did he get banged up?
I don't even know. I have no clue. But if that is true, they were like, yeah. Who exactly comes out at quarterback? Do we have Patrick Herbert and the Wildcat?
Don't they have a walk-on kid, right?
I'm sure they do. Yeah, I'm sure they
Oh my God, wouldn't
that be hilarious to see a walk-on quarterback playing in the Fiesta Bowl?
Then you're happy it's Liberty, right? Because then maybe you won't get blown out.
Yeah, right. So who knows? I have no idea if Austin is actually hurt or not. But if that is true, yeah, it's a good thing Bo decided to play. Oh, Lordy. Speaking of quarterback news, right before we hopped on here, the most obvious transfer portal transfer of all time, Aidan Chiles, headed to Michigan State. I mean, wow. Who would have guessed it? Right. Aaron, your thoughts on Aidan joining up with his former staff?
I figured Jonathan would take one of the two, DJ or Aidan. DJ entered the transfer portal first. He started for Jonathan this past year. So that seemed like maybe the logical choice. But if you're Jonathan Smith and you have a choice and you believe in Aidan after, and again, this comes back to belief, right?
Yep.
This is a demonstration of belief. If you are totally comfortable with Aidan being your starter at Oregon State down the line, then obviously you're going to be comfortable with him at Michigan State. And if I have a choice between the two, I'm going with the younger one.
Yeah.
I'm going to have him for multiple years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there might be a bigger, even though DJ beat him out now, DJ's more experienced, there might be a greater upside with Chiles. So yeah, Jonathan Smith had to make that move. I'm sure he went to their NIL collective and said, "This guy's legit. Let's get him some money, get him out of Oregon State." But it's just such another devastating blow for the Beavers because if you have a live dual threat kid who can just make plays, it can elevate everything else, and then you can go into this uncertain era with a guy who can just make plays and carry your team at times. And now you just have a huge question mark at quarterback yet again.
How many backup freshman quarterbacks are getting the third series every game around the country? I'm going to go with
not very many.
0, I would imagine. My very scientific research. I think they had to go with Aiden. DJ was serviceable last year. I don't think that he was not a world beater by any means. And you have to go with the person who has more years of eligibility, because then you can build a program on top of that. Instead of, DJ won last year and then he's out. You can tell kids this is going to be your quarterback. So, it all made sense. And there was, an interesting post on Instagram a few weeks ago that I put out on Twitter from Aiden that was had some song lyrics in it, and everyone was like, oh God, what's going on? What does this mean? Whatever. And you could really take it one of two ways. One was that he was throwing shade at the staff for leaving him at Oregon State. And the second was he was leaving. It might be both. And then, somebody, I think it was his dad or something, commented and was like, please don't, read too much into this post from him or whatever. Well, what all ended up happening? Exactly what we thought. So, but yeah, he's he'll do great things for them, and Beavers fans are going to hate it the entire time. Poor Beavers fans. This is just they are just getting spurned by their former lover. Holy smokes.
They need to go get Ty Thompson.
They need to go get Ty Thompson. Hey, why not?
Hey, if Ty can't find a better situation, he walks in there, you just say, hey, I'll come. You got to give me X amount, and I'm the starter going in. At least you ask for that promise. And you get beaten out, But that's a place where Ty can go, and if he does well, he has one more year left to maybe go somewhere else. Poor Beavers fans, sorry, they're going to be a stepping stone for a lot of players for a while. And he can resurrect his career there. So we'll see. Because one of the things about Ty, too, he has to worry about, if two coaches passed on you, coaches talk. So when another coach says, hey, what's going on with this Ty Thompson kid? They can go to Dillingham. They can go to Stein. They can go to Lanning. They can go to Mario. They can go to Moorhead. And maybe the reviews are not going to be horrible, but they might not be like, oh, yeah, this guy's going to be a difference maker. And so the higher upper echelon programs are probably not going to take a flyer on him. They might bring him in as depth, right? But they're not going to be like, oh, come be our starter. But the lower tier. I wouldn't
go there if I were him.
Right. The lower tier Power Fives, and then the group of 5 teams, someone's going to need a quarterback. But here's something that's interesting. Jay Butterfield, 4-star kid at Oregon. People were high on him. He transferred to San Jose State. Didn't play.
Yep.
And that's happened a lot with some of these kids, these high-end recruits for Oregon. Travis Johnson went on to play wide receiver at Montana State, I think, or Montana, and then played in the NFL for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as a practice squad receiver. Morgan Mihalik went to Towson and never really played there. Shuck has done pretty well for himself, other than injuries, and some other guys have just disappeared off the face of the planet. So anyway, I hope he lands somewhere we can just show off that arm strength and see if he can put it all together. All right, what's next?
A side note on the Childs MSU thing that has a local tie. And speaking of transfer portal quarterbacks, shout out to Sam Levin for seeing the writing on the wall immediately and getting out of there. He was like, it was literally Jonathan Smith is coming, and he was like, see ya. So, now he's going to Arizona State, which, there's another Oregon connection there in Dillingham. Funny how this all works out. But it is kind of funny because he was upset that Smith and company did not recruit him when at Oregon State, and it made that very vocally clear when he left. that the reason why he was leaving is why would I stay here for a coaching staff that disrespected me and didn't recruit me in my own state. Yeah, that was on the record set. So it is funny, though, that now he's going to Arizona State with a head coach who also didn't recruit.
I guess he probably figured Oregon not recruiting him made sense, but not Oregon State.
Yeah, maybe. So, so anyways,
but would he want to go to Oregon State and back up Childs? I don't know. Kids need to get over that kind of stuff. But whatever.
So he is on his way to Arizona State. So we'll see how that works out for him. But he maintained his redshirt year, even though he did play. He
only threw 23 passes.
Yeah, so he was he still has that freshman year of eligibility. But yeah, shout out to him for getting out of there ASAP. Let's go. Like he and I mean he was right. Like the writing on the wall was pretty obvious. So another side note. Boy, am I looking forward to the COVID era coming to an end soon and me trying to figure out if these kids have an extra year of eligibility or not.
Yeah, no kidding.
We're so close.
If you're a freshman in 20, then 1, 2, 3, you still got 2 years left. Well, no, 1 year left, unless you redshirted a different year. So yeah, we got a couple years of this still to go.
Oh my God, it's too confusing. It's too confusing for my journalism brain. Okay.
It is kind of nuts.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of kids who could be redshirting because they're still old enough or young enough, the Trailblazers have several of those on their team. We haven't talked much about them lately because they weren't doing much. And of course, I do the Blazer Focus podcast with Craig Bernbach. Bernbach. It's back, and I always say Bach because it's spelled like Bach.
It is,
and it sounds more sophisticated, which is why he doesn't like it. Bach. He wants it back because he's burned back. Damn it. Anyway, the Blazers have played decent basketball lately. They've, if they're plus 10 or more, take them. They might win. They're definitely covering, and they've been doing pretty decently with injuries. Ant was out for a long time. He came back just in time for Grant to be out with a concussion, DeAndre Ayton to go out with tendonitis, and then Malcolm Brogdon got injured, knee soreness in the game that Ant returned at Golden State. But Brogdon, Ayton, questionable for tonight against Utah. And of course, if they're out and then they're questionable day of, 99% of the time they play that night. So I'm expecting at least one, if not both, to play. Grant's still out because he's still in concussion protocol. But here's the deal. And I do this a lot, I admit. I try and look for hope. I try and look for something. It's a long season. It's a long season, right?
It is.
Yeah. It is. And so we're only 25% through the season. And I don't believe the Blazers are going to make the playoffs. But I'm not going to just light that whole thing on fire because I can't wait to see what this team looks like when they start Ant, Shaedon, Kamara, Grant, and Ayton with Brogdon and company coming off the bench because Ant is legit. Sharp has been playing out of his mind. Give them some length and the height and, of course, the scoring of Grant all mixed together. This team is going to be an issue, I think, for even the good teams because they already have been without a complete lineup. So the rest of this month, they play 8 out of 9 at Moda. They're 6-16, 8 out of 9 at Moda. And 6 of the games are against teams that currently have a losing record. San Antonio twice, Utah, Golden State twice, I think. They're struggling. We're going to talk about Draymond in a second. And there's and Washington Wizards. So they can win all 6 of those. They probably won't. Upsets happen, obviously, but they might pick up an upset against the wing teams they play. So if they're healthy, why can't they go 6-3 in the next 9? That's not out of the question. If they were to do that, all of a sudden you're 12-19. That's still not good.
No,
but it gives you a jump start to moving forward. If you remain healthy, that you could, maybe you inch your way up to 500. Who knows? Anything can happen in the NBA, obviously. So I've convinced myself that this month is super important, and I'm covered as such, damn it. Now, when I asked Billups about it, he's like, we're not good enough to be looking ahead. It's one day at a time.
Funny.
But Ant was like, yeah, because he said before the season, Ant was like, I want to make the playoffs. So I brought that back up again. He's like, yeah, I do want to make the playoffs. And we're about to get healthy. Let's see what happens, which is what you expect a competitor to think, even if they were 0-20. So I'm psyching myself up, Brenna. It's going to be 8 games at home in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to approach it like this team is trying to get back in the play-in hunt.
I just pray to God that they can all remain healthy during that time frame.
Right? Exactly. Like, who's going to get hurt next?
Like, it's just, yeah. I mean, we know who's next up on the injury train. That's actually pretty obvious to me. But anyways, I'm not going to say names because I'm not going to put that juju out in the world. But yeah, like, it's just been, they get somebody back, and then that same night, whenever they get somebody back, they lose someone else, if not 2. Like, it's just like,
right.
How does this keep happening? Like, I'm exhausted. Man, the Blazers and the Oregon Ducks, it's a rough go in terms of basketball, and injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Holy smokolas, man. So yeah, anyways, I mean, it could be a nice month. We'll see what happens. Next Tuesday is going to be fun. The return of Nurkic. I don't know why I just tried to make his name weird. The return of Nurk. Even though he was back for the preseason, but this feels a little bit different,
Yeah.
So, regular season just feels more official. So that'll be fun. There's, you got Wimby in town. You got
twice.
Yeah, twice, back-to-back nights, and you have a very interesting Golden State team right now. Woohoo!
Nice segue.
Hey, Blazers have that 2024 first-round pick. Let's go.
Yes, they do. Sean Hike and I were talking about that at practice yesterday. That can make up for the Pelicans thing a couple years ago when they had the Pelicans pick if they were in the lottery, and they ended up making the playoffs, and the people freaked out. So they got a later pick from the Bucks that they turned into Grant. But anyway, yes, yeah.
Do we want to talk about the lovely?
Oh yeah, we do. I was waiting for you to lead us into that.
Yeah, I mean, it just, it just ends us, it just flows quite well. So yes, oh, Draymond.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. Draymond was fast as. Sorry.
Yeah. He did what he did, and nobody seems surprised about it. That's the thing. Like,
that's what he does.
How much of a rep do you have to everybody just be like, yeah, that's him? Like, I wish that the NBA would come out with what exactly the benchmarks are for him to come back. I hope that happens soon. Because right now, it feels...
suspended indefinitely for striking Nurkic in the face, and he's going to undergo counseling, right?
Yeah, but nobody really knows what the actual benchmarks are,
Right.
So that would be nice to see. But yeah, I mean, my man, just stop. Like, come on.
He's ridiculous.
He is ridiculous. He's ridiculous. And, I actually saw Draymond play in college. Because Michigan State came to Gonzaga. And he absolutely murdered Gonzaga that game. Murdered. It's like one of the only players that I remember coming into the kennel and, like, really having, like, that wasn't in conference. That was like, oh, that guy's really good. He's really good. So yeah. So I've kind of like to follow Draymond ever since that, and it's just so frustrating. Again, and he just signed a new contract. Like, you just signed that new deal, so you've got 4 more years left on that. Like, it's crazy. How are you doing this? Like, ugh. I don't know. Anyways, you talk.
So one of the problems, I think, is that no opposing player has really put him in check. And I know us old heads always say back in the day, but back in the day, there would have been a fight. Yeah. Like, there's no way there would have been a fight. And next time he went down the lane, not every team was like this, but someone was going to take him out. Like you just can't. I couldn't imagine anyone getting away with doing stuff like that. And so you get fined if you leave the bench. If you fight, you get fined. People are making a lot of money, but no one budged. Like no one went out of him. No one did anything. Nurkic didn't get up swinging. Like Nurkic should have got up swinging. And again, maybe I'm just living in the 80s, 90s NBA and what we would have done on the playground, but it was so blatant. And then for a guy that tall, that long, to have a guy behind him defending him and said, "Oh, it was a foul. He was grabbing me." And people grab him all the time, and that's just the NBA. For him to swing both arms behind him, do a 360, and have his right arm come all the way around and smack a guy, and then say, "I didn't mean to hit him," is comedy. Like, there's no way you thought you weren't. Oh, I was just selling the call. Selling the call by doing a 360 spin and flailing your. What got like a 6'10", 6'11" wingspan? You're flailing it around, and the guy. I mean, if you think the guy fouled you, that means he's right behind you. So unless your arms are 2 feet long, you're gonna hit him. And then what's funny is Nurkic was laying on the ground holding his face. It's a great photo, and Draymond's looking at the official and holding his arms like, "What did I do?" And it's just like, what is going on here? This is psychotic. So I'm glad the NBA is taking it more seriously this time, because this guy's kicked people in the stones, stomped on Sabonis, give a choke hold to Rudy Gobert just last month and got suspended 5 games for that. Yep. He has a long history of doing these ridiculous things, and no one,
punched a teammate.
Punched a teammate in practice, a much smaller teammate who shoved him out of his face, and he's the Rodman of this era, and Rodman was definitely ridiculous, but he believes that this is just who he is as an enforcer, and that's his role as the villain, and therefore he can do these things, and he believes he can do these things because no other player in the league checks him on it. And he seems to do it a lot to people from Europe. He's not doing it to a lot of big American players, which to me is kind of telling. And I'm not trying to advocate violence. I'm just saying, if I'm someone on Phoenix, the next time we play him, if I'm Nurkic and Draymond comes to the lane, I'm following the hell out of him. And if he wants to fight, we can just fight. If they want to find me, they can just find me. There's no way you can let guys get away with being that ridiculous. I don't think. But that's just me, and maybe I'm just a barbarian, but whatever.
One of the things, speaking of Sean Highkin, that he brought up that I thought was really interesting was that not enough people are talking about the fact that both Nurkic and Draymond are both clutch guys. So I do wonder if that sort of stuff kind of goes through, like, the brain. You're in shock. Like, you're definitely in shock.
Yeah, that's true.
I know how I would be in that situation, and I wouldn't think about fighting back because I'd be so in shock of what just happened. And then you kind of assess, like, well, if I do this, what does this mean? And blah, blah, blah. Like, your brain's just firing, And maybe it was just one of those situations where it was like overload. I'm in shock. I can't handle everything. I thought Nurkic's post-game press conference was elite. I mean, he didn't go after him like, oh yeah, screw that guy, whatever. It was like thoughts and prayers, which was an incredible tone to strike, because that's not what you're expecting from an NBA player. I thought it was masterful. I mean, honestly, Nurkic, and Nurk would tell you this himself, he is great at trolling. He is awesome at it. It is one of his things. And I'm not saying that he was necessarily trolling him, but like, this was it was the perfect tone to take, and I don't know if I would have thought of it myself. So shout out Nurk. I mean, he did. The fact that he did not get fined throughout all of this is kind of impressive. Like, he played this perfectly in terms of not losing his money. So,
yeah.
Shouts to him. I respect that. I respect a man who values his dollar. So yeah, but I mean, yeah, can you imagine if this time last year we would have told, like, somebody would have told us this? Like, Draymond Green is going to be suspended because he struck Yusuf Nurkic in a Phoenix Suns game.
Like, and Nurkic didn't retaliate.
Yep. Yeah, Nurkic didn't retaliate. I mean, wow. What a year we have had. What a 2023. Crazy.
Well, yeah, good for Nurkic. You know, like I said, I was in a 3-on-3 basketball tournament, a media tournament. This is 20-something years ago. And I was guarding this guy who was bigger than me, and he kept going to the block, and he would try, he backed me down. So one time he lowered his shoulder, and he came up into my jaw and hit my jaw. And I was like, damn, dude, that kind of hurt. You know, don't do that again. He then did it a second time. I was like, dude, what are you doing? It's a 3-on-3, like, media. Like, it's not, we're not playing for the NBA title. He did it a third time, and this time I bit my tongue when he did it. And it was almost like he was doing it harder, even when I was asking him not to do that. I lost my mind. Like, one of my friends was there with his wife, and they're 2 small children, and they were just like, they bring the story up all the time because they were horrified because I just went ballistic because it hurt. That he did it a third time, and I bit my tongue, and the pain was so intense.
Oh yeah.
And I shoved him, and I squared up, and I was like, you bleepity bleep bleep, and I was ready to fight, and it got broken up. But it was just like, and people were like, why are you trying to? I'm like, he's shouldered me in the jaw 3 times, and now I'm bleeding. So yeah, it's time to fight where I come from.
Yep.
And I'm not a fighter, I'm a lover, not a fighter. But from where I come from, you do that stuff on the court. It's, you know, you have to push back in some capacity. So maybe that's just my mentality, and maybe I'm wrong. And maybe if I made $20 million a year, I wouldn't do that. But someone's got to check this guy. And if someone checks him within the game, just like he does to other people, I think he might stop. But someone has to do that. Or maybe this will do it, this whole counseling thing. But like I said, back in the day, you getting clotheslined in the NBA. And there's going to be people coming off the bench, and they're going to rumble. But anyway. Did you ever get into a fight on the court, Brenna, in a game? No. I got into some football games, some shoving stuff. Football fights are funny. Practice fights, shoving in games. It's football fights are funny because you hit each other in the head and you got helmets on, and it's literally, it hurts the person who hits the person more because your hand is hitting a helmet than it does the person getting hit. And you're wearing all this gear, so like no one's ever going to get hurt. So I was in a bunch of those, but they were like nothing. And you know, afterwards you're always shaking hands. So that's not a big deal. It's just in the heat of the moment. But so you never scrapped at all in your hoop days?
The closest I ever got was in, of all things, CYO, Catholic Youth Organization basketball my senior year, because I'd stopped playing for my high school, but there was a bunch of us who had played our freshman year, and so I was on that team with all those girls. And there was a junior level team of a bunch of girls from our school too. And one of the girls on their team, whenever they were on offense, or actually, I don't know, it might have happened all the time. Whenever I boxed her out, she was grabbing my wrists with her fingers like this, like putting her so that I couldn't go get the rebound. And I turned around and I yelled at her as loud as I could, and I told her to get off of me. I said, "Get off me!" Well, and apparently that didn't get translated like that to the stands, and it got translated as a different combination of words.
Oh,
yeah, which I did not even think of because, you know, that's not what I said.
Right.
And so, anyways, I remember like the ref being kind of stunned, but I think he knew that I didn't say what people in the stands thought I had said. So I get to the car after the game, and I sit down in the car. My mom's like, "I'm so disappointed in you."
You're like, "What?"
And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "You told that girl to F off." And I was like, "No, I did not."
You're like, wait a minute.
told her what I said, and she was like, "Oh." She's like, "Well, everybody in the stands thought you said something different." So there's my CYO basketball legacy right there. I did not say. I will vindicate myself now. 14 years later, I did not say what people in the stands thought I said. But yeah, she I remember she was taken aback. She was not expecting me to tell her that. I don't even remember who it was, to be honest with you. Lucky for that girl, you don't remember. You don't remember. Ha ha ha. I might. Now that I'm like thinking through it, I might have some ideas of who it was. Anyways, so yeah, no, I told her.
Now, had you dropped an F-bomb, the officials would have heard it, and they probably would have teed you up or ejected you. Right. So yeah. So if I was a parent, I would have been like, well, she couldn't have said that because the officials would have done something.
Yeah, I mean, the officials right there, like I said, I yelled at her loud enough that people in the stands could hear because I was done with it. I was like, stop grabbing my wrists. Like, I've played a million games of basketball. No one has ever grabbed my wrists before. Like,
right.
So yeah, I think honestly, like I said, everybody in the stands heard it one way. The ref probably knew what I said, but questioned it because I remember there being like a moment of shock in the gym and me being like, are people just shocked because they're not expecting me to yell at this girl? But yeah, anyway, so there you go. There's my one CYO story of telling a girl to get off of me and having it not being translated like that. So,
all right. So the other part of this whole thing with Draymond being out for a while is that the Warriors have been struggling already. Like they're not living up to expectations. I mean, not that they were considered to be a front running, title contender, but they're 10-13. They're right now 11th place. They're going to lose Draymond for a while. Wiggins is struggling. Klay Thompson is a shell of his former self. Obviously, Draymond's being a knucklehead. Curry's still a baller, but he doesn't have much reliable help these days, and they are struggling. This is great for Portland because in the flurry of deals they did around Damian Lillard, they got the Warriors' first-round pick in 2024, top 4 protected, I believe. They're definitely not going to finish. Well, they could win the lottery, right? But they probably have small odds to do that. But anyway, as long as they stay within, 5 and 14, yeah, 5 and 14. The Blazers would get that pick, which would be a nice coup because coming into the season, you would think the Warriors would be a playoff team and therefore that pick would be in the 20s. And now it has a chance to be a lottery pick. Now they could turn things around, a lot of season to go, but this would make up for not getting that lottery pick from the Pelicans a couple years ago in the CJ trade when they thought the Pelicans would fall out of the playoffs, even though they gave them CJ, and instead they made the play-in and then got into the playoffs and the Blazers lost that lottery pick. So what do you make of that? Like that could be a nice little gem for the Blazers to scoop up.
Why not? I mean, might as well. Did they get that pick? When did they get that pick from them in the GP2 trade, or was that different?
No, that was part. Different. No, that was part of the. Boston had the pick.
Got it.
I'm pretty sure it was from Boston, or they got Holiday 1 first and 2 swaps, and Grayson Allen from Milwaukee, and then with Boston they got Williams, Brogdon, a first and two swaps. I can't remember. I'll look it up. You talk about it. I'll look it up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like following a family tree. The Blazers draft picks right now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Holiday to Celtics had that pick included.
Okay. Cool. Well, I mean, thank you, Golden State. So yeah, I mean. Then they'll have they will have their pick as well, and we all know that this draft is looking a little meh, but more picks are more picks, more ammo's more ammo, and the Blazers need all of it right now. So we will definitely not say no to it, and we'll just see. It should be another very interesting draft season, to say the least.
Definitely.
Never boring. By the way, just a side note, and I've got a bunch of them this podcast. Really feel for somebody that we encountered during the pre-draft process, Oscar Tshiebwe. because he's the one
Oh.
that the Pacers got the ball for, and like,
Oh my
he didn't
gosh.
do anything. And here he is, like, in the middle of this whole I saw like video of him back in the tunnel in the middle of this whole situation with this game ball with Giannis last night. And Oscar is like the nicest. I mean, I don't know. Maybe, you never know. You only interview him once. You aren't around him, but it really does seem like from the interview that he gave during the pre-draft process, and also just from the reaction to that interview online, gosh, he seems like the coolest kid. And I'm like, this poor kid is involved in something that he didn't even like really do. He just, like he didn't do anything wrong. He's not the one who grabbed the ball. So yeah, anyways, I feel for him being in the middle of this right now, because he's the coolest kid. He was were you at his interview, Aaron?
Don't remember.
Okay.
You mean his workout? His workout?
Yeah, his workout. Yeah, the interview after his workout.
I think I attended all but one of those, so probably.
He was the best interview of the entire pre-draft workout. I mean, it was like, I don't know how to describe it. He was just so like a breath of fresh air, so jovial, so nice. Like, it was like, oh my, like charming, like just the coolest guy. And like, he totally, like, everybody afterwards was like, we don't care, draft him in the second round. Like, sounds great. Like, because he was just so awesome. So I feel for him a little right now that he's involved in all this. Definitely, personally, my favorite interview of the pre-draft workouts last year, and I think it's probably because there wasn't any expectations on him. He just stepped up and was like, "All right, here's this guy from Kentucky that we know was really good last year. Like, let's see how it goes." It's not like the Thompson twins or Scoot or Brandon. Like, it was
Right.
like, okay, here's this random guy, and he just came in, and it was like it was the highlight of the pre-draft process for me. So anyways, I feel for him right now for being involved in this. He scored his first NBA point and it turns into this. Like, that's crazy. So yeah, anyways, I was thinking about that.
Yeah, so he gets his first points. Giannis goes for 64. Giannis wants the game ball. The game ball's gone. Pacers took it for the kid because it was his first NBA points, which is pretty standard. I was flabbergasted to learn that they only use one ball the entire game. I never really considered it or thought about it ever in my life. Baseball, clearly they probably go through like 20, 25, 30, 40 some nights. Yeah, because they'll change like mid-inning and stuff. So look, yeah, easy over 20. And in football, they use multiple balls. But in basketball, apparently they have 3 to choose from, and they pick one, and then they go with the one the entire game. My solution to these types of things, which hardly ever happen, this may never happen again, is that as soon as someone reaches a milestone, at the next stoppage, you get the ball and you put the ball wherever it needs to go and mark it. And then you play with one of the other 3 balls the rest of the game. And then if someone else does something amazing, they get that ball. There's got to be more than one game ball. Yeah, but I was fascinated to learn that they use one ball the entire game. So that's why this was such a big deal, because there's only one ball used that game, and Giannis scored all 64 points with that ball. So let me ask you this: who deserves the ball most?
Giannis.
Think so?
Yes. He set a franchise scoring record. Come on.
I'm torn.
Oscar's first point came at the free throw line.
It's still his first point. It's like standard. Doesn't pretty much everyone have the ball from their first points? I don't know. I'm torn on it. I thought Giannis acted ridiculous, though. Running off into the tunnel and screaming and freaking out. And it was just him and ladders. Giannis and ladders. Those are his weaknesses. Game balls and ladders. You remember the ladder incident when he wasn't allowed to warm up because had a ladder at the hoop? I can't remember where it was, and they were trying to adjust the hoop, and he got all pissed and knocked the ladder down.
I am looking at my phone right now because we do have some breaking news.
Breaking news. What you got?
Oregon and Oregon State have announced the schedule adjustments with the home and home with Oregon State. Next 2 years of Oregon football schedule will sustain the annual rivalry matchup. So we all knew, let's see, The 2024 home opener will remain the matchup with Idaho. We all knew that the Texas Tech game was gone. The Boise State game now moves up to September 7th, and Oregon State slides in to September 14th, which is where Boise State was supposed to play at first. So there you go there. And then in 2025, rather than playing at Boise State on September 13th, Oregon will host Oregon State on September 20th. The 3-game contract with the Broncos was reduced to 2 home dates for the Ducks in 2024 and then 2026. Shout out to Boise State. Get your money. Boy, did they get paid, I'm sure. Let's see here. Oregon will now.
So good for Oregon State. They get to get beaten by 30 or 40 by the Ducks. That'll be good.
Yeah.
For them.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be. It's probably not going to be very competitive, but I'm glad it's sticking around. So yeah. Anyways, that's basically the summation of that. But I'm glad that we at least have 2 years set and good to go. We will see what happens after that. But yeah, nice little dumpling of news on this Thursday. We had a few things this morning. So yeah, I know Oregon's going to dominate. They should anyways. But I still think it's good for the state that they at least have 2 years under contract. We'll see what happens after that. But I think that it's good. And I know that some Oregon State fans are pissed. My friends. You do not know who your full schedule is next year. You take the game. Period. End of story. Like, you do not have a conference right now. You know you have 6 games against Mountain West teams. And, whatever your non-con ends up looking like. But you still gotta fill, and you gotta make sure that you got Power 5 programs on that schedule, even if you're not playing a Power 5 schedule anymore. So,
right.
Yeah, this is, in my book, a win-win. And I know that some Oregon State fans will not see it that way, but,
It'll be interesting to see down the line especially if it becomes a situation where Oregon State just cannot compete.
Yeah.
Even just from the fact that they have good players, other programs are going to come take them. Maybe even Oregon, or maybe agrees and never take their players. I don't know. So if you're already struggling to keep pace recruiting wise with Oregon, and your best players can get plucked, then you're going to be at a complete disadvantage. So then, if you're getting routed, do you still want to play it?
A similar-ish situation. The most similar situation I can compare this to is Colorado and Colorado State, because Colorado State's in the Mountain West. Colorado is now in, the Big 12. And I understand it's not totally similar because Colorado has been garbage the past few years. But that rivalry has continued on, and it's, a West Coast. Colorado's not West Coast. A West Coast-ish rivalry that has similar components, and that has continually gone on. Now, like I said, Colorado, Oregon, 2 very different programs. Once you actually, dive into the meat of it, but that one has continued. So we'll see what happens. But I think it's good for it to let's give it a 2-year trial run and see how it goes.
All right, so I called up that series. So yeah, Colorado hasn't been the same since they were in the 90s and early 2000s when they were obviously a national power. But they have won the last 6 in a row, but only a couple were like complete routes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then Colorado has won 4 in the last, looks like 12 years. There's a stretch where they won 3 out of 4. Colorado State did. And even before that, in the late 80s, early 90s, when Colorado was really good, the scores were, Colorado was ranked top 10. I'm looking at 5 in a row. And the scores were 45-20, 37-17, 42-14, 48-34, 31-21. So those are highly competitive games. There's obviously a blow. 42-14 is not.
Yeah.
That's a blowout. But especially back then, that's a blowout because you weren't having all these offenses racking up all these yards and touchdowns with the no huddle and stuff. But still, it wasn't, a shameful blowout. So, I just wonder in this day and age with the NIL, with being able to swipe players and recruit players and one and done transfers, or you can transfer after 1 year and not sit out, or transfer at all and not sit out, if that's just going to tip the scales even further. But we'll see. But you're right. This is a great example of where Colorado, obviously the richer, more visible program, and Colorado State has stayed in the series despite mostly being on the short end of the stick in terms of the outcome. But we shall see. I can see why Oregon State fans are pissed, though.
I can understand it, but I think that it's short-sighted.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
I agree. All right. One last thing real quick, and then we'll sign off. I just want to get you. I don't know if you have an opinion on this or not, but in-season tournament, everyone's calling it, well, people are calling it a success. Lakers are going to have some kind of banner that maybe the league is implementing or having people do. Did you get anything out of it at all?
Personally, not really. No.
Okay. I'm the same way. I wasn't impressed. It wasn't bad, but I wasn't impressed.
The final game kind of being a dud is kind of lame.
Yeah.
So that stinks. And like you said, there's been some talk about that banner. Personally, I think that's probably a league thing where they're like, yes, you're going to be putting up a banner in the most, storied banner collection in the NBA. So, yes, you're going to put up a banner because that's free advertising. So, I mean, that's I think that I'm sure that the league has something to do with that. It's a thing that happened. I don't know.
I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's fine they had it, and the color, the courts are, they're kind of silly, but they're kind of, they're kind of fun, and
it's
it doesn't,
smart.
It's not a huge. It's not a disruption. It's early enough in the season. I just didn't find much value in it for me personally, but I didn't hate it. But we'll see what they do. Like some people were talking about, it should mean more. It should earn you something else. That's going to be kind of delicate to figure out. But, whatever. I'm glad that someone from your generation agrees, so I can't just be old man yelling at cloud. So that's good. You can't say I'm saying get off my lawn because Brenna says the same thing, and she didn't even have a lawn.
That's true. I have a pool in which they haven't done maintenance. They haven't done any yard maintenance on it for over a year, and there's this is my apartment complex. The funny thing is I'm not actually looking at it. I'm just looking at the general direction of it right now, and there are literally vines growing into the pool at this point. So that's what I have in my backyard. It's awesome. It's really
yelling at vines. All right, we're golden. Hour 05. Good job, Brenna.
We do it every time, somehow, some way.
All right, thanks for listening to the Oregonian Sports Podcast. Don't forget our subtext feature. Text JOIN to 503-386-0095, and you will receive a link to a 14-day trial. After that, it's $3.99 a month. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon.